And in local headlines, new details surrounding the mauling of an innocent man in Laurel by a Montana Highway Patrol police dog. Troopers say Mike, the K-9, served on patrol for 3 years. We have these stories and more. Good morning and welcome to Montana This Morning on this Thursday, December 5th. I'm Augusta McDonnell here with Miller Robson.
Hey, good morning, Augusta. Good morning, everybody.
Good morning, everybody. Yep. Welcome to your Thursday. It's been warm this week. I hope you've been soaking in the vitamin D.
Yeah, and plenty of opportunity today and tomorrow. A lot of sunshine. We're in this warming trend. You know, a couple days ago we saw those 60s. Not so much yesterday behind a cold front. So it dropped those temperatures about 20 degrees from the previous day. We called a high yesterday of 42. Boom, that's exactly where we hit. We're going to be warmer, though, the next couple of days. A lot of 50s out there, maybe even some areas like Sheridan on Saturday. A chance to hit 60. Top gust yesterday near 20 at the airport. Winds will be a factor this weekend, especially along the western foothills. We'll be talking about that coming up. It's been very dry out there for the month and, of course, for the year. Snow totals continue to dig a hole, but we do have some snow possible in the forecast as we get into the early part of next week. We'll take a look at that. No snow out there this morning, but we do have some frost on the ground out there. Not on the roads as of yet, but check this out. We do have the possibility of maybe some fog or even some freezing fog. 28 right now at the airport, feels like 15. Humidity at 81%. So our moisture totals, it's starting to come down a little bit. You can see the dew point, 23 degrees. So it's kind of spreading far apart or getting a little bit far away from that 28 degrees of our actual temperature. The closer those temperatures are together, that means we have a better chance of seeing some fog. So some areas could still see some freezing fog this morning. What that is fog that freezes on contact on surfaces at 32 degrees or below, and that could make for some icy roads in some spots. So just be careful and be mindful of that as you head out this morning. But a lot of sunshine today, just a beautiful couple of days. And then come the changes. We'll talk about the changes coming up.
All right, Miller, thanks for tracking all those details. You might have to scrape your window this morning, so I had to clear off my windshield, so keep that in mind. And we've got some in-depth coverage this morning on some changes in transgender law. Lawmakers in Helena rejected a motion to ban Montana's first transgender lawmaker from using the women's bathroom at the Capitol building. It was introduced by Republican Jerry Schillinger. The measure says legislators would be required to use the restrooms of the sex they're assigned at birth. He never specifically named Montana's only transgender lawmaker, Democrat Zoe Zephyr, in that measure, but said the motion, quote, says what shouldn't need to be said. Every Democrat voted against the motion, as well as several Republican leaders, with some saying the measure was a distraction. Republicans led a national effort to ban Democrat Sarah McBride from using the women's restrooms at the Capitol, at the Washington, D.C. Capitol building earlier this fall. This all happening as the Supreme Court hears arguments in what's being considered the most significant case this term, whether states like Tennessee and Montana can ban puberty blockers and hormone treatments for transgender youth. And while a decision on this case is not expected anytime soon, the topic continues to be controversial, almost splitting the country down the middle. Joe St. George dives deeper into what the numbers say when it comes to gender-affirming health care.
Wednesday's landmark hearing at the United States Supreme Court involving Tennessee's ban on some gender-affirming care for transgender youths. The case will not get an actual opinion from the Supreme Court for months, but there is no doubt the issue of transgender rights is a controversial one, dividing many parts of the country. That division on full display outside the High Court Wednesday. Some Americans believe young people have a constitutional right to gender-affirming health care. Others disagree and believe that seeking such medical treatment under the age of 18 is wrong. A Pew Research study from June found that 51%, a slim majority of the country, believes changing your gender is morally wrong, but more than 60% in that same study were also opposed to putting restrictions on transgender youth. The debate over transgender rights has been intensifying throughout 2024. President-elect Trump aired campaign ads in swing states attacking Vice President Kamala Harris over her past positions on the issues. Meanwhile, in states across the country, debates over access to bathrooms and sports teams continue. At the U.S. Capitol, a Republican lawmaker has introduced legislation restricting a newly elected transgender member of Congress from using the bathroom of their choosing. The Supreme Court's ultimate ruling in this case could be very narrow, or it could be wide, impacting every corner of the U.S. Over 20 states in the United States have passed some form of restrictions on gender-affirming care for young people. Joe St. George, Scripps News, Washington.
Joe, thanks so much. And as the Supreme Court hears arguments in a major case on transgender health care for minors, like we were talking about earlier, Montana is watching closely. We're learning Montana's Republican Governor Greg Gianforte filed a brief in support of a Tennessee law to ban puberty blockers and hormone treatments for children under the age of 18. Our Andrea Lutz spoke to Montana's only transgender lawmaker who remains vocal in opposition of bans like this.
As a Tennessee law over gender-affirming care on minors plays out at the nation's highest court,
I think this is ultimately about putting biological truth and science over ideology.
Montana is watching, and especially Democrat lawmaker from Missoula, Zoe Zephyr.
Trans people exist, and the attempts to erase us from public life, I think are, one, cruel, obviously, but two, deeply misguided.
It wasn't just 2 years ago Montana lawmakers took up a same issue. Senate Bill 99, Montana's Youth Protection Act, prohibiting gender-affirming care for transgender youth. It was signed into law, then caught up in legal trouble. Governor Greg Gianforte is now supporting similar legislation in Tennessee, making sure the Supreme Court knows about it, sending justices a supporting brief, and saying, children who struggle with gender identity deserve love, compassion, and respect. Going on to say, society has an interest in protecting its children.
When you bow your heads in prayer, you see the blood on your hands.
However, as Montana's only transgender lawmaker, Zephyr disagreed then and disagrees now.
That will make it harder for trans people, undoubtedly, to access the care that we need. Care that, again, every major medical association in this country agrees is often medically necessary for trans people, saves our lives.
A Pew Research study found 51%, a slim majority of the country, believes changing your gender is morally wrong. But more than 60% were also opposed to putting restrictions on transgender youth. The issue in the hands of the Supreme Court, with both sides saying their intent is to protect children. In Billings, Andrea Lutz, MTN News.
Andrea, thank you so much for covering that story. And of course, all of these issues will appear in the upcoming legislature, which kicks off in January. We're expecting to see several bills looking to regulate healthcare or transgender healthcare for youth particularly. And now let's get to some local headlines here. Continuing our coverage, we now know the name of the Billings woman who died in a house fire last week. The Yellowstone County Assistant Deputy Coroner says 61-year-old Lyndia Grooms was killed in the fire on 12th Street West just after midnight last Saturday. He adds Grooms died from smoke inhalation and thermal injuries. Nothing else is being released at this time, including the possible cause of that fire. And we have new details this morning about the mauling of an innocent man in Laurel by a Montana Highway Patrol police dog. This also happened last week. Troopers say Mike the K-9 served on patrol for 3 years as a full-service police utility dog, and he was not in the care of his normal handler when this happened. Troopers say Mike freed himself from his kennel before biting the man who was working in his yard. A Laurel police officer used lethal force to stop Mike after about 15 minutes of trying to break up that interaction from hurting the man any further. The victim was treated and released from the hospital. At the time this happened, Mike was in the care of Trooper Luke McKinney, not his usual handler, John Metcalf. In part of a statement from MHP Lieutenant Colonel Kyle Hayter about this, he says, "Rest assured, our canines are highly trained to obey their handlers' commands and do not present a danger to the public. This was an unfortunate but isolated incident." Troopers say during his career since 2022, K-9 Mike was deployed 168 times, helped arrest 79 suspects. The Laurel Police Department is continuing to do their own investigation into what happened. And here in Billings, a new and very personal exhibit commemorating the 60th anniversary of the Yellowstone Art Museum. Artist Elizabeth Stone got creative using film negatives donated by the Billings community. Our Isabel Sparts takes us inside the I Remember project, signifying we're all connected, more so than we think.
The Yellowstone Art Museum has been a staple in the Billings community for 60 years now, and a Montana artist is celebrating that milestone through our own snapshots of the past.
In this room at the Yellowstone Art Museum sits over 8,000 memories.
People come here and they feel relaxed and they look closely. I'm sure they feel nostalgia too.
That closer look being Billings' memories over the years to celebrate the museum's 60th anniversary.
We really thought this was a great way to call in the community and ask them to participate and be a part of this celebration.
Seeley Lake-based artist Elizabeth Stone was commissioned to create the piece, and earlier this year asked the community to donate old photos, slides, and film negatives.
The images are the curation of what people see in their lives and what they try and hold on to.
Birthday parties, weddings, new babies, new houses, life, death. All things we as humans can connect and relate with, memories we've all experienced ourselves.
When you see everyone's histories kind of blended together and you realize that we're all kind of part of this web of life and of history.
Before you come into the room, there's a whole line of photos. And as I went down that line, it kind of cracked me up because I recognized some of the images that I had donated.
Local artist Stephen Harridan noted how the exhibit makes the world seem not so small.
If I stand back and look at it, it's just kind of a mass of stuff. But then, like looking at any community, once you get up closer, then you can see that, oh, there's this image right here that's of someone's wedding. It's of the kindergarten Christmas program.
Each part of the room is put together with intention, the slide covers in the corner acting as containers of memories. And the massive piece in the middle, 7 rows of film to represent the 7 mountain ranges visible from Billings.
I would take and apply heat to and reshape each individual frame, thinking about memory and thinking how memories are not consistent and always shape shift over time.
Whether your memories are included or not, there's still plenty to find yourself in. You just have to take a closer look.
There's just something about the people that you love being in the photographs and also capturing just like the beauty of life and the ephemerality of that.
In Billings, Isabel Spartz, MTN News.